We had a Saturday morning ritual at home. My wife went shopping and I made pancakes. She hated them, but I, on the contrary, enjoyed them when I could relax on a Saturday morning while she was at the store. It was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was standing at the stove when I had a heart attack and fell to the floor. I lay there long enough for the pancakes to burn and set off the fire alarm, which in turn attracted the attention of my neighbor. He found me and called 911. When I woke up the next day in the hospital, I was connected to many wires and tubes. I survived the widow killer. I have been told that if you are lucky enough to have such a heart attack, recovery is slower than with other types of attacks. I was also told that mental health side effects are common. For example, you may experience anger, irritability, fear, insomnia, guilt, hopelessness, and other feelings and emotions. Depression was a big problem for me. When I was finally discharged, I was glad to go home. Our living room, which was on the first floor of the house, was turned into a room for me. My wife, JT, and I used it as a living room, but it was actually an extra bedroom with its own bathroom. My name is Benjamin Fredericks. We called my wife JT, although her real name was Joni Teresa Fredericks, née Wilkerson. We had been married for 6 years at the time of my heart attack. I am the manager of one of the branches of a large bank. I started working there as a loan officer right out of college and worked my way up the ranks. If the bank had a fast-track promotion system, I would certainly be on it, since I was appointed branch manager long before this happened to others. I met JT when she came to apply for a loan on a house she wanted to buy. She worked in real estate and came across a house that turned out to be a great deal, so she decided to buy it for herself. JT and I were and remain quite ordinary in appearance. However, our characters were different. While I tend to be businesslike and somewhat formal, she was sociable and cheerful. I emphasize cheerful because she definitely knew how to enjoy life. It's not that I couldn't do it, but our ideas of fun were slightly different. My ideal time is a quiet evening at home, but for her it is a loud, stormy evening surrounded by friends, food, and drinks. I like to party sometimes, but it made an art out of it. Over time, we managed to find a balance, and we were both happy with our lives. But everything changed with a heart attack. I had been in the hospital for almost a month, and at home for about a week when it came in and started making sexual innuendos. She put her hand under my blanket and started playing. "When will he be ready to play?" she asked. "I don't know. Hopefully soon," I said. "It's been a long time." "Too much," JT said. "This has become a daily ritual for us. While she was at work during the day, I tried to arouse myself, but no matter how hard I tried, nothing worked. Sometimes she would pull the blanket off me and give me pleasure by trying to help me. She also stood naked in front of me and caressed herself. All to no avail. We even tried the little blue pill, but that didn't help either. Almost 4 months passed, and I was physically fine. I could go outside and exercise without problems. I even got used to the almost entirely plant-based diet that JT and the doctors put me on, but the best part was that I was able to walk up the stairs again and was back in our bedroom. JT and I thought my problem would go away, but it didn't. More than once I asked each of my doctors what my problem might be, and they all essentially answered the same thing: I have no idea. Medically, everything that could be done has already been done. Only my head remained. I even attended sessions with a psychologist, but to no avail, and the longer it went on, the more it seemed to be getting worse, if that was even possible. Stress levels remained high. I was worried about my mental state, but I was also worried about JT. She was very sexy, and I knew she was annoyed by my inability to satisfy her. We tried different things, but nothing helped. I offered to buy a sex toy, but she refused, saying, "I want real sex, not a piece of plastic." I knew she was serious. She hadn't gone this long without sex since she was 18. The first 2 guys took care of her until I showed up, and now it was my turn, and I was failing. We talked almost every day about my problem. We both talked to counselors and tried everything they recommended, but nothing worked. One day, I realized that she had stopped talking about sex and had also stopped trying to turn me on. The only reason I could think of for this was that she no longer needed or wanted sex with me. It was an easy guess, given my depression, to assume she was getting it from someone else. I've been at work for about a month, and I've never been so glad to be in a place. I was hoping that work would help me take my mind off my two main problems, my erectile dysfunction and JT's possible infidelity, and that it would help me overcome them, but it didn't work out. These thoughts weighed heavily on me, and I felt like we should talk about it. My depression was not improving. One evening she came home, said hello, and walked past me upstairs. She didn't even stop to hug or kiss me. I followed her into our bedroom. JT, we need to talk, I said. She started to undress and continued. About what? She asked. You know what I'm talking about. About our non-existent sex life, I said. Don't worry about it, she said. She went into the bathroom and closed the door. I went back downstairs. She didn't come down all evening. I got up at 11. She was in bed. I took a shower and went to bed. She didn't move. The next morning I woke up and she was gone. I searched the whole house, but she and her car were gone. I shaved and dressed for work. Deep down, I knew that she was tired of needing sex and found it on the side. My body was broken when I had the heart attack, but knowing she was cheating left my heart broken. At work that day, I tried to find reasons to forgive her, but I couldn't find any. I loved her and would never let her spend the rest of her life living with me and not having sex. If she had talked to me before this, I would have told her that we could get a divorce and she could do whatever she wanted. But she made the wrong choice. First divorce, then sex with someone else is normal. In reverse order, no. I talked to our computer specialist. I told him about my situation and my idea, and he provided me with everything I needed. One night, after a solo dinner of a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich that I knew I shouldn't eat, I sat in the living room watching TV. I sat in my chair and sipped my beer. I heard her come from the garage into the kitchen. I sat and waited. She walked in and sat down in her chair. As soon as she sat down, I pressed the record button on the camera Arik Guy lent me. I took the TV remote control and pressed the turn off button. I looked at JT. Who is he? She immediately understood what I was talking about and made no attempt to avoid the conversation. This is the guy I met at lunch. He sat down at my table and we started talking. How long have you been sleeping with him? Month. How often? As soon as we can meet. Usually 3 times a week. Is he married? No. So you go to see him? Yes. Do you love him? I'm not sure. We are very comfortable together, and I miss him when we are not together. How does he feel? He wants me to move in with him. Are you going? I'm thinking about it. What's stopping you? I'm not sure myself. She paused before speaking again. And what will happen to us now? She asked. You tell me. I loved you until this minute, until you admitted to cheating. When did you stop loving me? Who said that I don't love you? You have sex with another man, miss him when you're not around, and think about moving in with him. This definitely doesn't sound like love to me. She looked away. It was a long time before I spoke again. If you had a choice right now, would you stay here or go to him? Right now? Yes. I would go to him. Why don't you leave? He's not at home. He plays poker. What time will he be home? About 11. What's his name? She looked at me. Why is this important? Just interesting. In any case, this will become known in court. Court? Why? During a divorce. What kind of scam? Do you really think that I will stay married to you? Why not? Because you're sleeping with another man, that's why. It's not my fault that you can't satisfy my needs. Someone has to. There was another long pause before I turned off the recording, reached for the remote, and turned on the TV. I've heard enough. JT sat there for a couple more minutes, as if she wanted to say something, but didn't. Finally, she got up and went upstairs. It was already midnight when I went upstairs. I wondered if she would have had sex with him if she had gone to see him at 11. She was in bed and reading. I showered, put on my pajamas, and headed to the guest room. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I can't sleep here." "Why not? You are my husband." "Yes, I am your husband, but now you are another man's woman." "I wouldn't if you remained a man," she said, and returned to her book. Between that remark and the last words she said before going upstairs, I was completely unsettled. Words matter, and there was nothing she could say that would hurt me more, and my depression got worse again. One of our bank clients was a divorce lawyer. I wasn't sure what his office hours were, but I called him. The message said the office was opening in half an hour, but I left my name and phone number. He found out my name and called back. "Come right now. I have a few minutes." His office was on the 7th floor of our building, so I immediately went upstairs. I got straight to the point. "My wife has been cheating on me for a month now. She says she started it because I can't get aroused after my heart attack." "Do you have any evidence of treason?" he asked. I pulled out the video I took the night before. He put it in the player, and we watched it together. The look on her face as she calmly talked about having sex with another man was heartbreaking. It was even worse than I remembered. "Well, that's pretty obvious. Do you have children?" he asked. "No. This makes things easier. What do you want me to do?" "Divorce me." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Fine. When do you want her to be served with the summons?" "As soon as possible, and I want the reason given to be adultery." After a short pause, I continued, "After our conversation last night, she's probably doing the same thing I'm doing today, so I'd like to get ahead of her." Right before I left for home, he called to let me know everything was ready. Then I shared my idea with him. He thought that if she agreed, it would be perfect, and we put the plan into motion. Everything depended on whether she would return home and then go to her lover. She wasn't there when I got home, so I assumed she was with her boyfriend playing poker, and my plan would have to be put on hold. I took the lasagna out of the freezer that was left over from my pre-heart days and put it in the microwave. While she was warming up, I poured a glass of wine. I ate half the lasagna when she got home. She placed her bag and keys on the kitchen island like always. Then she leaned back on the island, crossed her ankles and arms, and stood there. I continued to eat. I finished, poured more wine, and went into the living room and sat down in my usual place. I pressed the record button and turned on the TV. A couple of minutes later, she came in and sat down. "How was your day?" she asked. I laughed. "Like you care." "I care. We are still married, and we still live together." I remembered a couple of minutes ago in the kitchen. Before the heart attack, and even in the first few months after it, the first thing we would do is hug and kiss each other and really feel it. The pose she took in the kitchen could be called a pose of challenge and defense. "We're still together," she said. Nonsense, I thought. "What did your boyfriend say when you told him that I knew about you?" "Nothing special. He was curious how you reacted." "What did you tell him?" "I said that it was as one would expect." "What else is new?" "I'm going to see him this evening. We decided that since you know about us, there is no point in hiding." "Why aren't you with him now?" "I needed things for work tomorrow." "Well, I won't detain you." I turned off the recorder and turned on the TV, trying to ignore her. She sat for a few minutes. It seemed that she wanted to say something, but did not dare. Then she got up and went upstairs. 20 minutes later, she came downstairs with a small bag and clothes on hangers. "When do you want me to come home?" she asked. I laughed. "Home? This house was no longer yours as soon as you agreed to have sex with him. Stay there as long as you want. Ben, don't be like that. If you ever go back to normal, things might change." She left. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. "We've done everything, Mr. Fredericks," said the voice. "Great. Wait an hour and hand it to her there. Make sure we have the address and any other information about it. It will be done. And call me when the summons is served." He laughed. "It will be done." Almost exactly an hour later, he called back. "It's all done, and I've never had so much fun in my life. I have a video if you want to watch." I laughed. "With pleasure." "Fine. I'm not far from you. If you want, I can stop by right now." Come, I almost shouted. His video showed a man about my age answering the door with a towel around his waist and looking very unhappy. "What do you want?" he asked. "I need to talk to Mrs. Fredericks." "Mrs. Fredericks is not here." "No, sir, she's here, and if you won't let me talk to her, I'll call the police to get you to do it." He later told me it was a lie. "It's okay, Freddie," I heard my wife say. Then she appeared in the frame, topless, and was not at all shy about showing her breasts to a complete stranger, something I never expected to see from her in my life. "I'm Mrs. Fredericks." "What do you need?" "Mrs. Joanna Fredericks." "Yes." He handed her the envelope. "You have been given a summons." "What do you mean? Summons for what?" "I believe these are divorce papers, ma'am." Great breasts, by the way. At that moment, she apparently realized that her breasts were visible and tried to cover herself. My lawyer and I laughed for a couple more minutes, and then he said goodbye, promising to send me a copy of the video. I didn't feel sleepy at all, so I opened another bottle of beer and sat there laughing, remembering what had happened. I half expected her to burst home that night, but she didn't. The next day at work, I had the calmest day since that day before my heart attack. Everyone asked why I was so happy. I couldn't explain it to them because I didn't know it myself. I loved my wife. At least I did before I found out about Freddie, but last night I started the journey to divorce court. Why should this make me happy? It shouldn't, but it looks like it did. She was waiting for me when I got home and prepared dinner. "What does it mean?" I asked. "I thought you might be hungry." "I ate chicken on the way." "You know you can't eat that. You'll have another heart attack. And this somehow worries you. You are still my husband, despite all the facts indicating the opposite." Silence. She put the food on the plate, then sat down and began to pick at it with a fork. "Do you really want a divorce, Ben?" "No. I want my wife back. She may come back. But only if you keep having sex with Freddie or someone else, right? I can't spend the rest of my life celibate, Ben. And I can't spend the rest of my life watching you leave home knowing you're going to someone else, or sitting here while you bring someone home to sleep in our bed." Life got really confusing after that. I had a plan, and it didn't involve moving out of the house, at least not until I was ready. I knew she would get the house in the divorce, but I wasn't going to leave until I had to. I kept expecting to be served with a restraining order, but that never happened, and I went to bed every night assuming she was going to Freddie, but she never did. At the same time, she did not try to get closer to me. Every morning, it seemed, we were on our old, familiar schedule. Breakfast was ready, and we sat down to have breakfast together. In the evenings, I usually cooked dinner, and we ate together. 2 weeks passed like this. We never talked about divorce, and she never left at night. On Saturday mornings, I made my pancakes, but I don't think she went shopping. Most likely, she went to Freddie's. My lawyer called and said we had an appointment with JT and her lawyer next week. Our week continued as usual. Each of us knew about the meeting, but no one mentioned it. When the time came, my lawyer and I were ushered into a conference room in her lawyer's office complex. He already told me that her lawyer is good and out for blood. I told him I didn't care at all. "Let's do this." Her lawyer began by demanding that the grounds for divorce be changed from adultery to irreconcilable differences. "For what?" I asked. "Because you have no evidence of adultery." She told me this herself. She said how often and where. Then it becomes his word against her word. "What if I have a video of her saying this?" He looked at JT and she shook her head. "We think you're lying." I looked at her. "Have you ever seen me lie?" "Someday. There's always a first time," she said. "And it seems to me that this is him." My lawyer opened his laptop, inserted a video, and rotated the screen so they could see it. Then we both sat back in our chairs. I wrote it down that night when I asked who she was sleeping with. "Enough?" asked my lawyer. They both just looked at me. "There's one more thing," I said. My lawyer turned the laptop, took out the first disc, and inserted the second, turning it again. It was a video that the bailiff took when he served her the summons, and it showed Freddie in a towel and JT's bare chest. She turned pale when she saw this. The lawyer gathered his courage. You can show this in court if you want, Mr. Fredericks, and disgrace your wife, but then we will have to voice the reason why she sought sexual gratification on the side. Then you will both be disgraced. Is this what you want? I didn't have time to say anything because my lawyer intervened. Let me ask you a question, colleague. When we stand before the judge, who do you think he will sympathize with more? The man recovering from a near-fatal heart attack, or the woman who left her sick husband because she wanted sex? I've had enough. I'm leaving, I said, getting up, leaving and heading to work. I wasn't sure if it would come home after our meeting, but I followed my usual schedule and returned at my usual time. She wasn't there, so I made dinner for one. I had just finished eating and was washing the dishes when I heard the garage door open. She came in as usual, but she had 2 bags of groceries in her hands. She placed them on the kitchen island with her bag and keys. "Is there still food left?" she asked, putting the groceries in their places. "No, I thought you were with Freddie." "Why? I live here. I thought you might want to celebrate your victory." I poured a glass of wine and went into the living room to watch TV. She made herself a sandwich, opened a beer, and joined me. "The videos today were a surprise," she said. "Do you have any more?" "You mean the video of you and Freddie?" "Yes, something like that." "No, it would be very humiliating." "You mean baring your breasts wasn't humiliating?" She laughed. "I have no idea where it came from. I never thought I would do something like this. But you did it. Looks like she did. Would you do me a favor and destroy this video when this is all over?" I chuckled. "I can't promise. Years from now, I might want to remember what your breasts were like. Do you think I have beautiful breasts? I always thought so and always told you so." She smiled. "Yes, it's true." Our life continued like this for another month. I still made pancakes on Saturdays, and she still left the house, probably to meet Freddie. Finally, the day came when we were notified that the court hearing in our case was scheduled for 3 weeks in advance. Nothing in our daily life has changed. We ate together, cleaned the house together, and slept in the same bed. We never discussed the divorce or Freddie, and we never spent time together outside the home. After my heart attack, I started walking and gradually built up my walks to 3 miles a day. My diet changed from the almost entirely plant-based diet I was put on after the attack to something more familiar to me, closer to what I ate before the illness: chicken, pizza, beer, bacon, and so on. I knew it wasn't very healthy for me, and JT still fed me plant foods, but when I was alone or out of the house, I went back to my normal diet. Finally, the day of judgment arrived. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. I usually left the house after it every morning, and that day I also stayed home when she left. As soon as she left, my little brother arrived with a truck, a car trailer, 3 of our friends, and a bunch of boxes. We were still packing and loading the truck by noon when I got a call from my lawyer. "Where have you been?" he asked. "I got busy packing and forgot." "So what happened?" "Well, since it was a formality, the judge approved the decision, and in 60 days, you will be a free man." "Why are you packing?" "Because she got a house and I need to move out." I paused. How did she react? She didn't come either. When he told me this, I was more than surprised. Apparently, she chose to sleep with Freddie while our divorce was being finalized. We chatted some more, and he told me that both JT and I needed to sign some documents. After our conversation, my brother, friends, and I finished packing my things. She got the house, but furniture was off the table, so I took a few items I wanted. There weren't many of them. I had a lot of clothes, mostly suits, shirts, ties, and shoes. After all, I was a banker and had to look the part. Once we finished packing my things and loaded the truck, we hitched the trailer to it, drove my car onto it, and secured it. I left my house keys and garage opener on the kitchen island so she wouldn't miss them when she came back. Then I said goodbye to everyone and went on my way. The last stop in town was my bank, where one of my employees helped me load boxes from my office. I went up to my lawyer and signed all the documents he had prepared for me. Afterwards, I went back down to the bank to say goodbye and shake hands with my colleagues. My secretary was the last person I said goodbye to. "If you need a secretary, call," she said. We hugged and exchanged kisses on the cheek. She walked me to the truck, and we exchanged kisses on the cheek again. The last thing I did was delete JT's phone number from my phone. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the truck headed north. I had to drive almost 500 miles due north to my new home and job. In fact, the work was the same, just in a different bank branch. I stopped for the night and, once settled in, checked my messages. There was one from my lawyer and 4 from my brother. First, I listened to the message from the lawyer. "Your ex-wife came to sign the papers immediately after you left. She didn't look like a woman who was happy about the divorce. In fact, she asked me what would happen if she didn't sign the papers. I told her it would just take longer to finalize the divorce, but it would still go through, so she signed and took her copies." The first message from my brother was unexpected. It arrived at 5:41 p.m., about 10 minutes after I usually got home, so she wasted no time in discovering that I had moved out and immediately called Billy, who in turn wasted no time to call me. "Hey brother, it's Billy. Your ex-wife called and wanted to know if you had changed your number because she couldn't reach you on the old number. What should I tell her?" His second call was delivered at 6:03 p.m. Billy was a little less relaxed when he said, "Ben, you need to call her. She's panicking." The third call was even worse. "Ben, call her. She is in complete despair." The last call from Billy was already quite dramatic. "Call this woman or I will kill you both." I called Billy. "Damn it, Ben. She's panicking. I told her that you left town and she wants to know where you went and why you left." "Sorry, Billy. I didn't think she would react like that. Just tell her that we are divorced, and why and where I went is no longer her concern." I already told her this, but she clearly doesn't agree. "You need to call her right now." Okay. I'll call her. We'll talk soon. Thank you and keep in touch." I took a deep breath and called her. She answered the first call. "Oh God, Ben, where are you and why did you leave?" "I left because we are divorced." "But that doesn't mean you had to leave. According to the terms of the divorce, this is how it should be. This house is no longer mine and I had to move out. But we got along so well. We got along like brother and sister. There was no more love. You gave everything to Freddie. I haven't given him anything since I was served with the summons. I tried to show you that we shouldn't get a divorce. JT, you gave no indication that this was on your mind, and you certainly didn't act like it. There was no affection on either side. If I knew that was on your mind, I would tell you that you are wasting your time." "Why?" "Because you slept with another man while you were married to me." "But I stopped, Ben. I stopped. If you could stop, why did you even start? You said yourself that you started having sex with him a few months after my heart attack, then had sex with him for a while, and then stopped. How long ago did you stop?" "Since the night they handed me the summons." "So you've been celibate since you told me you couldn't do it." "This doesn't make sense. I wanted to show you what I can do and that I still love you. Go back to Freddie, JT. Let him sleep with you as much as he wants. You cheated on me and we are divorced. Live your life and leave me alone." I finished the conversation. The next day, I reached a new city. I stopped by the office of my new home. Upon request, there were workers there ready to help me unload and move in. I didn't have much furniture, so the apartment seemed pretty empty. It was late in the evening when I returned the truck and trailer to the rental company. When I got there, I unloaded my car and turned in the truck and trailer. On the way back to the house, I stopped and bought a bacon and cheeseburger and a 6-pack of beer. The next morning, I went to work and met the whole team. My first thought was that I would like it here. The bank was decorated with Thanksgiving decorations. There was even a paper turkey on my office door. Everyone was clearly relieved when I laughed when I saw him. Apparently, my predecessor did not approve of such things in the office. I made it clear that I liked it too, and I encouraged it. During the first week, I received 3 invitations to Thanksgiving dinner. I politely declined all 3. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I went on a full-blown shopping trip. Before that, I just bought groceries a day or two in advance. I parked my car in the garage of the building where my apartment was located. A trolley was available in the entrance for the convenience of residents to transport purchases. I was grateful it was there because I loaded all the packages into it. When the cart was full, I took it to the elevator, pressed the up button, and waited. As soon as I pressed the button, two women joined me. Of course, I saw other residents of the building, but other than brief greetings in the elevator or hallway, I had little interaction with my neighbors. "Wow, it looks like you haven't been shopping for a long time," said one of the women, the taller of the two. All three of us laughed. "Or you're just eating a lot," added another. We laughed again. "Actually, you're both right," I replied. "But in this case, I'm a new tenant, and I'm just stocking up on everything I need for the first time." "Oh, I see. That explains a lot. But one important question remains." "Which?" I asked. At that moment, the elevator arrived and the doors opened. I motioned for the two women to enter first, and then entered myself, pushing a cart. "What floor?" asked one of them. "10th," I answered. "10th. You live on the top floor." "We've never been there," they said and laughed. "You should try," I said, and suddenly something completely unusual for me rolled off my tongue. "Apartment 1024. The bar is open from 8. Come with your husbands and something to sit on, because I don't have much furniture." I didn't have the slightest idea why I said that. It sounded more like something JT might say rather than me. But I said it, and now I needed to back up my words. The elevator reached their floor, and the doors opened. They went out, but one of them held the door. "We have only one husband between us." "What about you?" she continued. "And the main question, do you have a wife?" I shook my head. "I've only been divorced for a week." They both laughed, and the elevator doors closed. At 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened it and saw at least a dozen people, most of whom were carrying bottles of alcohol and platters of food. The first to enter were two women from the elevator and a man whom I later recognized as the husband of one of the women. The lonely woman turned out to be Evelyn Fillmore, but everyone called her Evie. She had been divorced for less than 2 years. I stepped back and a group of people went inside. I started to close the door, but someone advised me not to do this, since more guests were expected to arrive. It turned out to be one of the best parties I've ever been to, and definitely the best I've ever thrown. At almost 2 o'clock in the morning, the last guest left my apartment. The next week, I became the most popular person in the building. Everyone who met me thanked me for the party. The next week, someone dropped an invitation to another party at my door. It was an early Christmas party. Early because Thanksgiving hasn't even arrived yet. The party was to take place on a Friday evening in casual clothing, and all drinks and food were to be provided by the hosts. I think they wanted to make that clear since almost everyone at my party brought something. I didn't have to ring the doorbell because it was ajar. The first person I saw was Evie. She was standing in a small group, and a man was hugging her. I saw her take his hand and remove it. He tried again almost immediately, but this time she moved away. She saw me and came over. "Hello, Ben. Glad you came." "And I'm glad. Who is the master or the mistress or both?" I asked. She laughed. "Come with me," she said. She took my hand and led me to the kitchen. Her friend from the elevator and her husband were there. She opened more bottles of beer, and he helped her. "Do you remember Diddy and Jerry Myers from your party?" "I remember faces, but not names." "How are you?" "We're busy for now, thanks," he replied, smiling and quickly leaving with the beer. I reached out to shake Diddy's hand. She wiped her wet hands on a kitchen towel and then hugged me, ignoring my hand. When she did this, I felt a slight excitement that I had not felt since the heart attack. The feeling of her breasts pressed against mine made me feel something new. I pulled back and looked at her. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Better than it has been in recent months, thank you. Can you do this again?" "What should I do?" "Hug me." She laughed. "Certainly." She hugged me again, and the same thing happened. My excitement grew. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this helped me." Both women laughed. Evie took my hand and led me around the room, introducing me to everyone she knew. I recognized many of the people at my party, but I didn't remember their names. Evie stayed close to me like a magnet, and I really liked it. Evie and I were the last ones to leave the party. She lived just a few doors away from Diddy and Jerry. I walked her to her apartment, and she invited me for one last drink before leaving. Before I left, we agreed on a dinner date the next night. As we hugged goodbye, I felt the excitement build again, and it felt good. When I got back to my apartment, I rummaged around until I found my old, outdated computer, plugged it in, and turned it on. I went to the first adult site I could find. I knew there was a possibility of a virus infection, but the computer was old and all valuable data had been deleted or transferred to the new one, so I didn't care. I just wanted to see if I could get horny. Once I found the site, it didn't take long before I felt excited. As soon as I thought about getting married, I instantly lost my excitement. I didn't know if it was the thought of marriage or the memory of JT, but one of those words had a negative impact on me. I shook my head to clear my thoughts, looked back at the sex files, and started to get aroused again. I laughed out loud and thought, "Look out, world, he's back." Bank employees commented on my behavior more than once in the following week. Apparently, I was the happiest boss they had ever seen. Even Evie commented on my good mood during our dinner date that week. It started when I came to pick her up at her apartment. She was ready when I rang the doorbell and looked amazing, and I felt excited again. She was attractive not only to a man who could not get aroused for a year, but to any man. Our evening went well, as did the glass of wine in her apartment after dinner. We met every evening until she flew home to Arizona for Thanksgiving to spend it with her family. She came back the next day, and I cooked dinner for us. In fact, it wasn't really dinner. It was pancakes. It was a Friday night, not a Saturday, but I made them anyway. We met every evening for the next 3 weeks. On those evenings when we didn't go out, we were either at her apartment, or mine, or Diddy and Jerry's. Just before Christmas, we were sitting on the couch in her apartment, looking out the window. Light snow began to fall, and we sipped wine. Then we kissed. Then they kissed again. My depression was no longer a problem, but uncertainty had taken its place. I became very unsure of myself. I didn't know how to behave in those moments when I realized that we both wanted to move on, so I always stopped. I felt that Evie was being disappointed, and I was disappointed in myself. And then it happened. We kissed. First softly, then stronger and more persistent. Our lips were still connected when she took my hand and placed it on her left breast. I froze. My lips froze. She looked at me. "What's happened?" she asked. I think I better go," I said, standing up. "Maybe you really should," she said, taking the glass of wine and finishing it completely. I left her apartment feeling completely embarrassed and ashamed. I knew this incident would be talked about in the building until Christmas. When I returned to my apartment, I saw another invitation to a Christmas Eve party. The invitation noted that Christmas Eve was traditionally a family night, but the hosts wanted to celebrate with their housemate's family, and anyone who wasn't busy that evening was invited to a glass of egg liqueur. I went to a party. By this time, I already knew many of the building's residents and was having a great time until Evie showed up. Our eyes met, but we quickly turned away and focused on something else. Several times I caught myself looking at her and noticed that she was looking at me. I couldn't stand it and left. The next day was Christmas, and around noon I felt a kind of emptiness. I took a small red sock as a gift for Evie. It was a bracelet with charms. I bought it the night before so I couldn't touch her breasts. I had hoped that I could add charms to it over time, but that idea fell through the moment I left her apartment with my tail between my legs. I went down to her apartment and hung the sock on the doorknob, and then returned to my apartment. My brother Billy called around noon to wish me a Merry Christmas. We chatted for a bit before the conversation turned to JT. "There's someone here who wants to talk to you," he said. The next voice I heard was JT's. "Hello, Ben. Merry Christmas." Merry Christmas. "How are you?" she asked. Okay, thank you." Fine. Well, take care of yourself. Bye. Bye. Billy returned to the line. What the hell is she doing at your house? I asked. We are not at my house. We are in your house, or what used to be yours. Okay, what are you doing there? Getting ready for dinner. What? We are going to have dinner together. What are you doing? We are going to have dinner together. Well, here you go. Do you understand what you're doing? He laughed. Probably not, but it was fun so far. Merry Christmas, Ben, and he hung up. I shook my head in amazement. Well, okay, I thought. He's a grown man and can do what he wants. But JT. Christmas Day ended quietly in my apartment. The day after Christmas, I received an invitation to a New Year's party. My experience in this building has been that invitations to parties here usually come closer to the date of the holiday. I used to be used to receiving them weeks before the event. The invitations were essentially just copies of party announcements. They indicated whether you needed to bring anything with you, such as alcohol or food. Before I moved, my idea of fun was to spend a quiet evening at home. In the short time I lived in this building, a weekend without a party turned into a boring weekend. My apartment was on the 10th floor. The 10th floor was also the last floor of the building. The New Year's party was supposed to take place on the 7th. I decided not to go. It was 10 o'clock in the evening when the doorbell rang. It was Jerry. Do you have vodka, Ben? He asked. Certainly. I had 2 bottles, and I tried to give him both. Enjoy it, I said. One is enough for us. Won't you come? Are you there? Yes. Then I'll skip it. Thank you. What's wrong with both of you? Nothing. If there was something, I would be there. Okay, whatever you say. But there is a guy there who seems to be interested in her. Well, good luck to him. Have a good time, I replied and closed the door. I've always enjoyed the New Year's music programs on TV, so I showered, put on my pajamas, and sat down with a glass of Rombauer port. A little after 11, the doorbell rang. This time it was Evie. We just looked at each other. Finally, she spoke. Why aren't you at the party? Why aren't you there? I was. I came for you. For what? People ask where you are. Tell them I'm in bed, I replied and started to close the door, but she came in before I could do it. She walked over to where I was sitting, took my glass of port and sniffed it. Do you still have it? She asked. As she lifted her glass to sniff the port, I noticed a charm bracelet on her wrist. Rombauer does not release ports every year. They wait until the grapes are perfect. When it's on sale, I order a dozen or more bottles and only drink it on special occasions. I rarely share it with anyone, but that evening I made an exception. Very tasty, she said. This is the Rombauer, isn't it? To put it mildly, I was amazed. Yes. Do you know him? She laughed. No, I saw the bottle last time I was with you, and we both laughed. We sat on the couch and continued chatting until it was almost midnight. We were already drinking our second glass when she put it on the table, leaned over, and kissed me. Thanks for the bracelet. It's perfect, and I really like it, she said. I kissed her back, and I started to get excited. Why? She asked. Why what? I answered. Why did you pull away from me then? I wanted this, and I was sure you did too. You didn't lie to me, did you? Are you really divorced? Yes, I'm really divorced, I replied. Then why? She asked with a concerned look in her eyes. I looked at her. Seeing her look, I realized that I had to tell her the truth. I had a heart attack. I began and told her the whole story, including JT cheating on me because I couldn't get horny and how I only started to recover after Diddy hugged me. When you put my hand on your chest, I didn't want to continue because I was afraid of embarrassing myself and doing something stupid. At that moment, the TV announced that it was midnight, and Evie leaned over and kissed me. Happy New Year, she said quietly. Happy New Year, I repeated. Do you want to try to get aroused? She asked. Arousal is no longer a problem, I replied. The problem is how long he can stay aroused, I added. Why don't we find out? She asked, standing up and taking my hand. In the bedroom, the first thing I did was take off my pajama top. Then I reached over and began to undo the buttons on her blouse. "Do you want me to help you?" she asked. "No, this is my treasure hunt," I replied. That's exactly how it felt. I knew there was a treasure underneath those clothes and it belonged to me. She kicked off her shoes while I unbuckled her trouser belt. I undid the belt, undid the button, unzipped the zipper, and pulled the pants down her legs, lowering myself with them. I leaned forward and inhaled the smell. I hadn't smelled a woman in a very long time, and if I had any doubts about my ability to achieve arousal, they were dispelled with my first sniff. I stood up and pushed her blouse off her shoulders, then hugged her so that my hands were behind her back to unclasp her bra. I held the clasps in my hands and pulled them forward before letting the bra fall to the floor. She looked at me and smiled. "You've been messing around for too long. Let me help," she said, grabbing the top of my pajamas and pulling them off my shoulders. She then slipped her thumbs into my pajama pants and pulled them down my legs, moving down with them. "How long have you had this?" she asked. "More than a year." She smiled. I remembered that as a teenager, it didn't take me long to get horny again after sex, and that night was no exception. It was almost morning when we finished, and we lay on our sides, facing each other. She spoke first. "It's been a year for you, but 2 for me," she said. "Is it true? Why?" I asked. "I didn't meet anyone I wanted, but it didn't take me long to realize that I wanted you." We just looked at each other for a long time before she giggled. "I guess now we don't have to worry about whether it will work again." I laughed. "No, we don't have to worry about it anymore, but honestly, if I knew you'd be in the end, I'd go through it again." She smiled. "Liar," she said, and kissed me. I have never been so intensely and passionately satisfied in my life. The next thing I remember was the phone ringing. I looked, and it was Diddy. It was 10 a.m. I answered the call. "Hello, Diddy. Happy New Year." "Happy New Year to you too. Have you seen Evie? She left the party to pick you up, but never returned. No one has seen her, and she is not answering the phone." We started to worry. "She came to see me last night and asked why I wasn't at the party, but I haven't seen her since," I said and smiled at Evie. "He's lying, Diddy." "I'm with him, and your call woke us up," Evie said loudly so that Diddy could hear her. "What did my call do?" Diddy was surprised. Evie laughed. "I hope your new year was as good as ours." "Probably not," Diddy laughed. I heard Jerry's voice in the background. "Did you find her?" he asked. "Yes, she was with Ben all night," Diddy answered. I heard him laugh. "Well done, Ben." "Stop it, Jerry," Diddy said, and then turned to me. "We're making crab quiche if you two want to join us." I looked at Evie, who nodded. "Evie agrees, so we'll be there soon," I said. It took almost an hour because we had to shower together, of course, and then I shaved while she did her hair. Jerry opened the door with a big smile on his face. He held out his hand to shake and then hugged Evie. "Congratulations to both of you." "You are a wonderful couple," he said with a smile. "What exactly are you congratulating?" I asked. "With whatever it is," he replied, chuckling. "You both look so happy." "That's because it's New Year's, idiot," Evie said. "Everyone is happy in the new year." Then she went to the kitchen, where Did was. "I don't know how you did it, Ben." "You're only the third man she's dated in the last 2 years," Jerry whispered, "and according to Diddy, not one of them even got a kiss. She is called the Ice Queen in some circles." I laughed to myself. Ice Queen? I thought. Evie was hot as a $2 pistol. The 4 of us sat down and ate crab quiche, fresh fruit, and mimosas. Evie and I made fun of each other a little at first, but it was nice. Diddy and Jerry quickly became close and dear friends. On the 1st of April, Evie moved in with me. I still didn't have much furniture, but she did, so we called our friends and neighbors to help and moved her things into my apartment. Our life became ideal, and we spent every minute together or with our ever-growing circle of friends. The only argument we had was with 2 of our friends. It turned out that at a corporate party or picnic, she was caught kissing her ex-boyfriend. Most of the women, including Evie, thought there was nothing wrong with it. My only question was, did she kiss him on the lips? Yes, was the answer. Then she was completely wrong. You can only kiss your spouse or lover on the lips. And then the real storm began. Not a single woman agreed with me, and not a single man argued. Evie was angry with me for the rest of the day. That evening at home, I told her, before or after marriage, if you ever kiss another man on the lips, our relationship will end. She looked at me. Wedding? Are we going to get married? I smiled and took out the ring. This option was considered, I said, getting down on one knee. What do you think? I asked. She knelt down next to me and just looked at the ring. Then she threw her arms around my neck and, with tears in her eyes, said yes. The first call she made was to her parents in Phoenix. The second was to his brother, who also lived in Phoenix. Then she took my hand and we ran to Diddy and Jerry. All she had to do was raise her left hand and both women began to squeal, then laugh and then cry. At first, I didn't even think about calling anyone. Then I called my brother Billy. Congratulations. When can I meet her? He asked. Our parents were killed in a plane crash when I was 18 and he was 16, so we were each other's only loved ones. What about the 4th of July? I offered. We're throwing a party and you're invited. Can I bring a guest? He asked. Of course, I answered. Don't you want to know who it is? He continued. Costs. Maybe. Okay, I give up. Who is this? JT, there was a long pause before he spoke again. Hello? Ben, are you still here? I'm here. Did I hear correctly? Will you bring JT? If you don't mind. Honestly, Billy, I think this is a bad idea. I don't want to see her, communicate with her, or be around her. I don't know what kind of relationship you have with her, but I don't need it. You remember that she cheated on me, don't you? Of course, I remember, but she has changed. Has it changed? Don't be funny. A leopard doesn't change its spots. Basically, don't bring her. He laughed. Okay, see you on the 4th of July. On the 4th of July, Billy met Evie and the rest of our friends. It was a very pleasant day. I asked him about his relationship with JT. Damn, this woman knows how to have sex, he said. But she wants to have sex with everyone. I told you so. Leopards never change their spots, I replied. He told me that while they were dating, she admitted that she had cheated on me with Freddie before my heart attack. That's when I decided I didn't need her anymore, so I left her. But like I said, brother, she knows her stuff. I still enjoyed my time with him. Evie and I decided to have a wedding in September and honeymoon in Australia. Billy was my best man and Diddy was Evie's maid of honor. Billy brought his new girlfriend. She was a widow with 2 children. They liked Evie and she spent a lot of time with them. I enjoyed the way she interacted with them. After the priest said, "You may now kiss your bride," and I did so, Evie whispered in my ear, "I want many children." I smiled. We had already discussed wanting to have children, and we both agreed that we wanted them. We just didn't discuss how much exactly. At the wedding, I met Evie's parents, her brother, and his family. We got along great and still communicate well. Billy married his girlfriend a year later. Evie and I lived in the apartment for another year. We wanted a house with a garden so that our firstborn, Diana, and all the other kids we might have could run and play outside. Diddy and Jerry bought a house next door, and our friendship continues to this day. Evie no longer goes shopping on Saturdays. We cook pancakes together. She loves pancakes. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.